So he said, I need some advice. So he's talking to me about what happened to him, and he was arrested for DWI. And I'm like, okay, here we go again. I'm trying to have my little drink. my slice of pizza. I'm at the bar. And he's not drunk or anything. He just asked. He said, hey, I've gotten a DWI, and, you know, and I kind of don't like cops. And he's telling me this whole story of how he was arrested.
I do not know you, but I am your brother.
You do not know me, but I am your protector.
I will run into a burning building to save your life.
Though I do not know your name, I will take a bullet for you.
Though we've never met,
I believe in duty and sacrifice
of self.
Your family is my family.
Is my family. Your life is my duty.
What's going on, guys? Time for another episode of Behind the Uniforms. Now, I think many people, when they see a cop walk into their office, especially when they have this much alcohol, would probably freak out. But I invite them in here, and I've invited this officer in to come share a couple stories today. For those of you who are watching this for the first time, here's how we roll. They bring in a bottle of whiskey for us to share a cocktail and to share with future Leos, veterans, first responders, and they share two stories. A difficult one and a positive one. The whole idea behind the Uniform series is to showcase the stories behind the men and women who serve our communities and our country, and to really humanize them and show that at the end of the day, they want to go home to their families just like us. So I'm gonna let you introduce I'm really excited. No one's ever brought a gift wrapped.
Well, I mean,
this is nice, man.
Where I'm from, you bring something, you wrap it up.
I like that. Oh, I like that a lot. Is this from Connecticut?
Yes.
What do we have?
Brantford. It's a super bourbon whiskey, and I have to tell you the story behind.
Yeah, please. Tell them who you are first, by the way.
First of all, my name is Otis Baskins. I've been a police officer for 10 years. I've been on a SWAT team for 8 years, and I'm a firearms instructor. So that's enough of that.
You could teach me how to be a better shot.
I own my own business too, so.
Excellent. Look at that, a little shameless plug.
Yeah,
nicely done.
Chamber ready. But anyways.
So, tell me the story.
Well, I come across a lot of people, you know, in my line of work, and I try to be as average as possible in terms of when I'm talking to people, when I'm dealing with people, whether I'm arresting them. I don't really get involved in terms of how I feel about somebody if they commit a crime.
Sure.
It's just, it is what it is. So anyways, after work, you know, I stopped at the local bar on my way home, which they have food as well. So I went to get something to eat, and I know the owner and pretty much everybody who works there. So I sat down, and of course they gave me my little slice of pizza. I like to get the spinach with white sauce, you know, or no sauce, whatever. So that's just my thing. So, and they gave me my drink, and I'm sitting there, and one of the owners talking to me, and he must have said something about me being a police officer. And the one guy said, hey, I have a question for you. So he said, I need some advice. So he's talking to me about what happened to him, and he was arrested for DWI. And I'm like, okay, here we go again. I'm trying to have my little drink. my slice of pizza. I'm at the bar. And he's not drunk or anything. He just asked. He said, hey, I've gotten a DWI, and, you know, and I kind of don't like cops. And he's telling me this whole story of how he was arrested, and, you know, the cop wasn't mean, but, you know, he wasn't really nice, but he still pinched me. He could have just, you know, maybe he could have given me a ride home. And I was trying to give him the rationale behind why cops make decisions when they're gonna arrest somebody, sure. If they think they're too drunk, and give them examples of people who are really close to home and they die, you know, and that's where most of the accidents happen, where people are really close to home. And we're talking. He, in his whole life, from what he told me, he didn't really have a good relationship with cops, period. But he was like, yo, I really like you, so let me buy you a drink. So he bought me some whiskey. I'm like, I don't drink whiskey. I don't drink. So he gave me some, and I'm still talking to the guy, and I drank the whiskey with him. He said, let me buy you another one. But I said, no, I gotta go. And I told the owner I gotta go. So I left, and yeah, that whole story he was telling me about, I arrested him.
Get the hell out of here.
So I had this guy buy me a drink, and I'm like, wait a minute, he's talking about me, and he has no idea that it's me. So that was pretty funny in terms of
oh, that's great.
But here's the thing, I don't drink whiskey. Okay, you told me I had to bring something.
Yeah.
So I went to the local store around the corner from my house, and this is what he gave me, and I tried it for the first time, and it was good. So I figured, well, the guy did buy me whiskey. I don't know what it was. I mean, I could have called him and said, hey, remember that conversation? I was the guy that arrested you, but could you just tell me what you got me?
So are you gonna sip this with me, or do you want me to get you like a Cosmo or like a Smirnoff Ice or something like that?
Nah, I'm not gonna have.
Well, toast. I'll drink yours. Don't worry, not a problem. All right, where do you want to start? You want to start high? You want to start low?
Wherever you want to start.
Let's go. I like starting low and then bring us back up.
Well, there's so many lows to the job, and you try to forget the lows. To be quite honest, I really had to think. So my lows are just the most recent, because you really have to try to draw them out, because you will bring these home. That's just human nature. If you're a good person and you care about the people that you work with or work for, and that's the difference maker too in the line of our work. We get a lot of young guys who are coming in, and when you're young, you go to the academy, you get out, you just want to save the world.
Yeah.
You just want to do your job, and part of that, the public looks at that as you're not being nice, or you're not being compassionate. And I can understand where they're coming from, because you have this young kid who you're probably older than them. Yep. They're stopping you, or giving you a ticket, or giving you a lecture order, making an arrest. And they're making decisions that can change somebody else's life. Yep. And they're young, and it can seem like they don't have any compassion, when really they're just trying to be the best cop they can be, because this is what they want to do. They want to please their bosses. I was fortunate enough to become a cop at 30. So I'm 41 now. So it was just a different time for me to become a cop. So when I look at, in terms of the different types of police officer, or your phases of becoming a police officer, you start off really hard. You want to go out there and save the world. And then you realize that, you know what, you can love the job, but if you don't love who and what you do it for, you're not going to be effective. And you could do the same thing. You can make the same exact decisions, but people will read you a lot differently. I've had people give me letters for arresting them for DWI. Writing thank you letters. You saved my life.
Wow.
And there's others that somebody else in a different situation, how they deal with it. You just can't look down on people. So when I think about, let me get back to my lows. I was getting off a little bit, but in terms of my lows, I recently, all the years I've been a police officer, I never did a death notification. Never did one. And my boss calls me, not my boss, supervisor, lieutenant. He was working. Hey, Otis, meet me such and such place. We have to do a notification. I'm thinking, okay, he's gonna do all the talking. I see, why me? He said, oh, I like you. Let's go do this. I'm like, okay, what happened? Well, there's a kid in another town who overdosed in a halfway house or a sober home. Jeez. He got home at night with his roommate. They both went to bed. The roommate got up, went to work, came back, he was still there, moved him, he's not alive. So now that's a crime scene. So now we have to tell the father, because lo and behold, this was like 2 hours away from us, and of course it's in our town in terms of where the parents live. So they said, you have to go talk to the father. I'm thinking, oh, I hope he's not there. I hope he doesn't live there anymore, because it's the last known address. So we go to the house, you knock on the door, and our humor's kind of twisted too, so just forgive me. We knock on the door, because this is what I'm thinking, like, I don't want to be dealing with this. I've never done this before. I don't want no part of this. Oh, he doesn't live here anymore. Yes. And so I'm thinking, yes. So, and my supervisors go, oh, we got one more address to go to. I'm like, ugh. And I just knew it deep down that this person was going to be there. Yeah. So we go, and we knock on the door. Dad opens the door. Now, with this whole heroin epidemic, when your kids or family members are on drugs, that they're always in some type of trouble in terms of, get in trouble with the law. So his first question was, what did my son do? And we're trained to really not to kind of hold back. You kind of just have to tell them. So the father's at the door. It's like 1 month ago this happened. The father's at the door. The grandmother is behind him, and the grandfather is behind him. This is their only child.
Oh, jeez. He
tells the father, and his father had this, I can't even explain the look that he had in his face. And he was drinking at the time. Not that it's a bad thing. He's home, he's not driving. He walks outside, both knees hit the ground, face into the ground. So I'm over there with him, and I'm like, oh, this is not good. Which I knew it wasn't going to be good anyway. You have to tell somebody a story like this. And then the grandmother screaming at the top of her lungs. And the grandfather he had a cigarette in his mouth. Just some little things you remember, and he just couldn't even lift. I don't smoke, but the cigarette was kind of just dangling out of his mouth. And so we're telling them, and there's not really much you can do except just stay there with them for a little bit. So we're trying to explain to them what happened, and I didn't have to say anything. So I'm like, okay, I could just be there, but I didn't know what to say. Like, what do you say when somebody's kid they just died, and it's their only child, their only grandchild, and he's telling me he wants to die. So in a different situation, I would tell people, hey, you got something to look forward to. Like, what do you say to somebody that lost their only kid? Like, what do you say? So all I did was just touch the guy, just put my hand on his shoulder, and just what we're doing right here. There's nothing I can do. But he didn't cry. He was just broken, literally broken. And so we left. I felt terrible. I still felt terrible. I said, yeah, we just left, and they're just there, So I said, let me get some coffee. I'm going to come back and just check on them. Just, if I have to sit there, I'll just sit there. I didn't know what I was going to do. And it's one of those things where you, like I said, I didn't want to be there in the first place. Yeah. And now I find myself driving back by myself without my supervisor. I'm like, what am I doing? So I'm like, what am I getting myself into? I don't know what I'm doing
You're
at
just
all.
following your heart, man.
So, and that's what I mean, because when you just love the job, you just do the job. But when you love the people, you figure out a way how to do the job.
Yeah.
So I go there. Now, I'm expecting not to really say anything about what happened because we already told them. The mother's there. They're divorced.
Geez.
They couldn't even tell her. Like, they couldn't get it out what happened. So I had to tell the mother.
Oh, my God.
And, cops are, I'm one of the, just for example, like, I'm the SWAT guy. I'm the firearms instructor. I used to do bodybuilding. I'm the tough guy, right? So I'm in there. And I just broke down. I couldn't tell her without any type of I never knew the kid, don't know the family, don't know anybody. And it was probably one of the hardest things I had to do, the earliest things that I had to do. Part of me is glad that I did it, that I was there. I don't remember exactly what I said, how I said it. But it was enough after a week that they came back to the police department looking for me. And as within the past 30 days, I've had to, I go to a lot of calls where there's ODs or possible ODs, and I had to go to a call not too long after that, and there was a kid that was on just flirting with heroin. And that's something you don't want to really flirt with. I'm trying to tell the kid, and I told the kid that story with the parent, and she has made some decisions since then, since hearing that story. So it was a terrible thing. Even though I didn't want to be there, I'm glad I was there. I didn't know what to do, but I'm glad I just followed my heart, and I was able to use that with the kid, the teenager that I had to deal with like a couple weeks later. And I'm hoping I could continue to do that.
Sure.
Because it was such a powerful reality for the kid to hear me tell that story to them. Like, these are the parents. They had nothing left in them.
Whole different perspective, yeah.
And like, we look at it, so you hear it on the news, this person OD'd, we had to use Narcan on this person. We had to do that. I'm going to a Narcan training tomorrow where I have to talk, and I'm probably going to share that story with somebody's parents. And, you really don't, you just put numbers and stories together when you hear them in the paper. You don't really know what it's like.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how tough you are. There's some things that are going to break you down. And that stuck with me. It's still sticking with me. But for the rest of the shift, I'm just glad there was no other calls. It was a Sunday out of all days.
Yeah.
So right before I came into work, I was at church all day.
Yeah.
Then I came in. I was like, okay, I hope there's nothing to do.
Absolutely.
And then it come down to that. But part of me in the beginning, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be placed there. When I was there, I didn't want to be there, and I find myself going back. Don't even remember what happened, but it was enough to have an impact on the family to say that it helped.
Yeah.
And that necessarily didn't make me feel good at all, because they still don't have a kid, and they lost them that way. So, and that's something that's tough. I'm actually glad that it didn't happen any sooner, because if I told you the story 2 weeks ago, I'd probably be tearing up right now.
Yeah.
So,
wow, man.
with time, things tend to not hurt as much. Yeah.
So bring us high now, because that's some deep shit, man.
Yeah, it really is. there's a lot of highs about this job, and some of the highs you probably wouldn't necessarily, the average person wouldn't think they're funny, but because we deal with so much crazy shit that you got to make fun of some of the stuff that happens. So I have a couple. I mean, I have some weird stories.
Go for it.
I'll go for the weirdest first, okay? So I do a car stop, and I'm leading in our department, maybe second. At the time, I probably was leading for a DWI arrest. Because we had a lot of fatalities in the town and a lot of evading accidents, and since we increased our DWI patrols, it's decreased. So I was really big on that. So I go out and I stop this car, and when you stop somebody or you're behind somebody, they pull into the next gas station all the time. Like, I don't know what it is about gas station. Don't even need gas, and I'll look at the gauge too. So once I end up stopping, person pulls into the gas station, a female and a male is in. Female's driving, and the male is in the passenger seat, so license, insurance, registration, and didn't say anything. Just kind of looked at me, and long hair, nails, everything's done up, and handed me the license. And then the person speaks, and it's a man's voice, and they go, "Yeah, that's when I was a man. You don't remember me, but you were really nice to me when I was a man." And I'm just like, and I just started sweating, you know. I'm like, okay. This is still DWI test, and he or whatever,
gotcha,
had the best attitude ever about the whole thing. Yes, they were drinking, but they weren't over the limit. But I don't know this until I started testing. So I get him out the car, and he's tall. He's like towering over me. I'm like, oh my God. So and he has on heels. So I started to, so all right, we got to do the test. And my partner's standing over there like, is this really happening? Are you really going to go through this test even at all right now? So skirt, everything. And I started to do the walk and turn test. Like, hey, this is what you have to do. And he's standing there, or she's standing there. I don't know what she wanted to be called, but anyway, because the license was a male face.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you mind if I just walk with a sass and go pop and just go pop and just go? I'm like, and I'm literally, I don't want to laugh, and he's making he knows I'm feeling uncomfortable, and he's just dragging it out, and then we get to the one leg stand, and then so I tell him how to do the one leg stand. I'm trying not to laugh at all. I'm trying to be professional because we wear body cameras.
Yeah.
So I have to be professional. So I told him, you have to hold out your leg, and he was like, oh, I don't know, honey, because I was doing yoga yesterday and my legs are too tired. And finally his friend was like, would you stop messing with the man and just do the darn test? So anyways, he wasn't drunk. And he was the funniest guy, and he made me laugh. So
that's great.
That was a weird story. So but it was a great one.
That's good stuff. Well, again, the whole idea behind this is to show that, people seem to have this perception that you put on a uniform and you're somebody else.
They see, it's funny you say that because I teach fair and impartial policing, and part of that is talking about normal human bias and what we tend to judge people on. If I don't know you, they don't know me. They put in all the stereotypes with it. So when you see me, you don't see a black male. Mm-hmm. You see a blue uniform. You see a police officer, and you put in all the things that you don't know about me from my initial voice tone, with everything else that you probably heard in the media, and everywhere else, maybe your family, your upbringing, and whatever. But until you get to know me, like the guy at the bar who bought me the drink, initially didn't like police officer, but when he sat with me and talked with me and found out a little bit more about me, he said, oh, this guy's not so bad. So, and that goes the same way for when cops are dealing with the public, because our even well-intentioned people have biases. We all do.
Sure, of course.
So I automatically think, it's just something that your mind naturally does, and you have to understand what they are. And when you know what they are, how do you override them? How do you override them? By human contact, personal contact.
Sure. So
one of my responsibilities, I'm on a mountain bike all the time. So I'm out talking to people all day long, and you get to know people. So, somebody that I would think, oh, this person's just a bum or whatever. No, they just got out of work. Once you talk to them, or this person may be an alcoholic. No, they were just having a good time. It was their wedding, or they had a party last night. Sure. And they're just good people. So it's tough. We all get that call as police officers. Suspicious guy, black, standing on the corner or in the neighborhood. Don't recognize him, come see him. See what he's up to. Well, that's against the law.
Right.
That's not, and so we're put in a position that we have to go check out somebody, and it's not us that we want to stop somebody because they don't look like they belong in a
But
certain
you got to
neighborhood.
call. You have to respond.
But I have to respond, but we have to make sure we do it in the right way. So because all right, now I'm the trainer, so I need to do this right. So I see the guy in the corner, and I say, hey, how's it going? Just to make conversation with him. And I'm honest with people. I said, listen, some guy called and saying that there's this, suspicious, black guy on the corner. I feel comfortable. I'm black, I could tell him, I could talk like this. And he said, really? He was pissed off. And I'm like, I'm pissed off too. I'm like, this is some BS. I said, you know what? I'm going to go talk to the guy, ask the guy his name, whatever. And when I deal with people, I have to, call things in, whatever. So I go find the guy and I say, hey, did you call about it? Oh, let me back up. The guy was waiting at the bus stop for his daughter to get off the bus. BS. So I find the guy and I say, hey, you calling a suspicious person? He said, yeah, he's on the corner. I said, well, what makes him suspicious? He didn't know what to say. He knew he messed up. He was like, oh, and his kids came out, little kids. And he was like, oh. He said, well, we had some break-ins, the cops go there. I said, well, what makes him suspicious? I knew we were getting that. Yeah. And not to say that this guy was a racist or anything, but it's your human bias.
Sure.
Something that he didn't mean it. I could tell in his heart he didn't mean it. He just felt like, it's okay, I'll leave on that note. So it was a good, you still have to do your job, you have to do it the right way. And if the cookies fall in that place, then you deal with it. But you have to start off in the right path. And whatever happens, happens. And just go from there. But that was just the guy laughed to it. I mean, it was funny. And I even told him what I do in terms of training. And I said, yeah, I'm gonna, make sure I tell other people about this. And you can't. And he was like, yeah. I guess I wasn't your best. I should have paid that traffic ticket.
Oh, that's funny, man. Well, listen. Let me ask you this. Speaking of teachable moments, how do we, with the narrative and the polarization that's happened in our country right now of pro-police, anti-police, black versus white, how do we overcome all of this? How do we overcome the stereotypes and the natural frustration and everything that's going on right now?
Well, I think the first thing we have to admit across the board, which I think we have, but people aren't hearing us or it's not being covered, that we have to admit that there are some things out there that are not happening that's supposed to happen the right way. It's not necessarily with one color. I think it's happening with every race, every incident.
Yep.
And it's coming down to we have to say that a little bit louder in terms of when there's a problem, admit it, and then deal with it.
Right.
Deal with it swiftly. But on the other hand, because it's a funny thing how this whole police thing works. We get our powers from the government to do a job, and you don't necessarily have to do it a certain way, even though you can. You don't have to do it a certain way every single time. But I think it's important that we realize that our legitimacy comes from the public, from the community, and they legitimize our jobs.
Right.
And we can't do it effectively if they don't trust us. And I think we as police officers, we need to remember that as well, because even though you can't really say, I had a long look at this, you can't respond to Black Lives Matter and say Blue Lives Matter. Because they didn't say it matters more.
Sure.
They didn't say it's the only life that mattered. They said it just matters.
Sure.
So, and I think you can't create another slogan to somebody's, what's the word I'm looking for? You can't.
To their concerns.
To their concerns and to their what they believe and what they think is happening. You have to acknowledge that and then deal with that, because nobody's going to hear anybody. Nobody's going to hear anyone. One of the things that I'm trying to do is called Blue in You, where we go into the communities, bigger cities, because they draw the most, and there's maybe about 4 of them in Connecticut. Me personally, I'm trying to do. You ever heard of the shoot or don't shoot scenario stuff, where you've probably seen them on TV and stuff like that? But I would like to bring in communities. It's going to start in my department first, and you'll know who it is once it's actually out there. We're bringing in people from Black Lives Matter, ACLU, NAACP, any community activists, and I want to give them training on what we've been doing in terms of fair and impartial policing.
Awesome.
To let them know that this is what we're doing, because people don't know we're doing it.
Right.
Some cops don't even know we're doing it. So when I do the training for the first time in these research, they were like, oh, I didn't realize we were doing something like this. So give them a basis of what we're talking about. and having them understand that this is all about human nature. It's not about the police.
Yep.
Because this problem happens with lawyers, doctors,
No doubt.
you know, different professions. You're going to have this problem unless we all talk about it. It's not a police problem. It's
Right.
not but somehow we're holding the banner to racism, because there's other things in the criminal justice system that could be fixed.
No doubt.
And I think it's more so on that end when we start getting to courts and sentencing and crimes and minimum sentences and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but I think so. What we're trying to do is do a training like that for a group of people, just a week-long thing or maybe a couple-day thing. Then do a use of force training with these people, and then have them go through our simunition or there's a computer system out there that you could do a shoot or don't shoot situation, and have them go on ride-alongs.
Awesome.
With these police officers, because you never really hear about anybody from Black Lives Matter doing a ride-along.
Right.
How do you get to know somebody? And even as police officers, what is their real message? I'm pretty sure it's not what they're putting in the media.
Yeah.
What is your real message? What are you really out there to do? What are you looking to do? What are you looking to get? So how are we going to get that information? If we're having meetings with them, if they're being a part of our police department, being a part of the solution, instead of you need to do this. So we're telling them, hey, you need to do this, and they're telling us, no, you need to do that.
Right.
And then you have the government in the middle, and then when an incident arises, it's a shaky situation.
Yeah.
And it's tough because it's different on the other side of the country. That's just the reality. And I think it has a lot to do with training. I think it has a lot to do with the process of becoming a police officer. Like over in the South, Midwest, a lot of times they have to be in the jails first for about a year, 6 months to a year. Now imagine a correction officer working in corrections and then having to go to deal with people in the community, working out in the street as a regular patrolman or a sheriff or something like that. It's different. It's a different way to look at it. And I think the only way to overcome is they really have to, we always say community policing. Well, the community needs to be involved with us too.
Absolutely.
So we can get out there as much as we can, as much as we want, because I'm going to have people that still don't like me because of what they've heard. They're not going to give me a chance.
Of course. Well, listen, man, that's the whole idea behind this entire series, is that we show that at the end of the day, you're out there trying to bring together a community, and you want to go home to your family, just like everybody else. So
Yeah, and I want people to go home to their families. you know?
absolutely. Well, guys, for everybody watching, again, we ask that you take 2 seconds, hit the share button. Let's get these stories out there. It's so important if we're going to really forge these relationships to share the positive, the difficult, the negative, and everything that's being done to overcome that. So, officer, thank you for joining. All those of you, thank you for sharing. God bless America.